I would call this permission, for lack of better word, but maybe I have to look for a search for a better term. Permission to give a woman, to remind them they're beautiful in this stage of life. They're even more beautiful on many levels that they were not available before. Yes, body is changing. Yes, there are some changes on the skin and the hair and etc. And it's not deniable. But there is an internal beauty which is expressed in a different way of looking into things, into reaching out to people, into embracing people, into helping others, as well as lead others, depending on your own ability and predisposition in life. So I wish, I want, even with our small podcast, it would kind of given some signal of permission. You can be as you are, you beautiful as you are, you very wise in this stage of life. So embrace and enjoy.
Welcome to Play by Your Rules, the podcast for those tired of living by somebody else's script and ready to live and lead their own lives. I am your host, and Tamara, Coach/Strategist. Ready to spark your little rebel energy and leave you with a sense of possibility. Each episode, I talk to leaders, adventurous people, and individuals who discuss their journey, struggles, growth, and sometimes redemption. We cut away the pressure of expectation and unfulfilled child pleasure. If you're craving for freedom and love, you're in the right space. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Play It by Your Rules, my call for mindful rebellion to challenge the old script and design a life and work that fits us much better. And when I do that, I actually look at four dimensions around the directions. I'll be clear on our North Star: energy, battery, and action. And today's guest is probably sitting more in the energy and battery environment because we'll be talking about menopause. But if you're a guy, don't switch off because there's kind of an equivalent of menopause for men because your hormones are changing too. So, with this, and with no further ado, I give you right the word, Tamara. Please introduce yourself and let's kick this off.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Pleasure to be here. My name is Tamara Koval, and I am gynecologist by training with experience in clinical space for a number of years in Europe before I switched to work for industry. And over the last several years, I have been engaged in development practical tools and advices for people who are going through the what I call second act, perimenopause and menopause. I really would love to change perception of this second act and to see this as a great opportunity for a woman to change their life, to improve their relationship, and to be certainly like a better version of themselves.
I love that. And that really fits with also the focus that I'm also taking around midlife, which comes on the physical side, menopause. But in general, like at midlife, things change. And I really avoid talking about a midlife crisis, but much more of a midlife opportunity. And the hormonal changes are a part of it. So tell me a bit more. So where does this start? Does it start with raising awareness of what's actually changing in our bodies? Or where do you start your work?
Well, it's a very good question. Thank you very much. Yes, very good question. I think yes, there is a biology involved, so there is a changes. So there are changes, and there is actually no denying about it. Estrogens are going down, and progesterone as well. So and testosterone also falling down, and this reflects on certain functionality as we used to know, specifically energy level, sleep, our appetite management, our sexual energy, as well as a physical appearance. Many women tend to gain weight. Many women unable to manage weight the way they did. Many women unable to manage a level of energy as it used to be while they were earlier. And it's impact basically every single dimension of our life, our work, our relationship with men, whether or not you are married or dating or a single, as well as our own relationship with ourselves, the way we are see ourselves. So, and it started usually, in 30s, gradually changes. Yes, it's perimenopause, getting kind of younger, when hormones become fluctuating. It's not immediately dropping, it's not happening overnight, but it's kind of starting there. And within years, its changes become more pronounced. And classically, traditionally considered to be around age 50, 52. This is in terms of age. Sorry.
So this is great. So usually, so it really like menopause, the real menopause is more around your 50s, let's say, but it starts earlier. So probably for the younger ones, they might not even think about symptoms, but for the ones that are closer to the actual menopause, I mean, there's the typical things, like the heat waves and, also the brain is affected. So what are first signs to pick up for, if you say you're in your late 30s, so you haven't even thought about that this is coming? So what are the first things that you might pick up, and what are the typical signs when it really comes closer to the actual menopause shift? So what should people look out for?
Well, it's a very good question, and it's actually clinical data are inconsistent in sense of, like, many people maybe experience variety of symptoms. Some people, and for example, I was one of them, they notice changes in their hair. Hair become more thinner, and color of hair changed. Okay, yes, it's getting more into reddish space, kind of this shade. Other people reported changes in the sleep. They simply cannot sleep. They cannot tolerate stresses that much. It's kind of awakening and restful period are really, really become difficult to manage. And consistently many, and I was also among those, reported changes of appetite and inability to manage weight. Specifically, people usually gaining weight, women usually are gaining weight. It's happening relatively rapidly, like around 1-2 years. You are gaining sometimes 5, sometimes 10, 15% of your body. And it's distributed not evenly, usually around middle portion of your body, which is different than when you were younger. And it's happening again due to the changes in hormones and due to the changes in the sleep pattern and in increasing level of stress hormones, cortisol, and all of this together is impacting woman's body. And with that, it changing psychology of woman. She see herself in a mirror and she doesn't like it. And it's kind of awakening her self-image, perception of herself. And she started to think, oh, it's not like I used to be. I'm not as beautiful. I'm not so aesthetically pleasant. I cannot manage. And it's kind of kicking into psychological cycle.
So it's all really interconnected. So I'd like to go deeper into that. But before that, I'm thinking about our male listeners and about work to keep that angle. So if you're a guy and you listen to this, keep two things in mind. First of all, there are for sure many women in your life, whether it's your partner that you understand better listening through this to understand better what's going on in her, but also at work, because I feel at work it's now becoming, it used to be stigmatized to not talk about it, but there's 50% of the population going through that. And again, male go to their own version, maybe not as extreme, but they also have hormonal changes. So now it becomes more of a topic at work and also workplace adjustment. But we can talk about that maybe a bit later. So let's maybe stay a bit with the weight gain for a second, because what I heard you say, it's a mix of things, right? It's the physical things, the hormonal changes, but it's also how we deal with them and how we might, how it might be difficult from us from a mindset perspective to manage our own appetite, right? So part of it is to just accept the body changes. So I always say either I change my habits or my body changes. So so you have to choose. So are there any really practical small things in that specific space around nutrition, around weight gain that people can get started with?
Yeah, sure. Maggie, in terms of fat gain, the core issue is actually stress, which is women experience in this stage of life. It's a stress, it's a high level of cortisol, it's a lack of sleep. And it's kind of, inability, or some of us are rejecting that this is a changes. Obviously, we have things that I did not mention, but it kind of goes without explanation. Obviously, there is a changes in menstrual cycle. So roundish between 44, 45 in general population until 50, you have a certain changes with your period. And I remember how it was exactly with me, like you just do not want to accept. How come? Is that heaven? Is that what? Is that it? Is this is a kind of end? And back then it was perception in my mind, like, well, this is menopause, life is over, career is over, relationship is over, there is nothing really good to be looking forward to, and etc. And also, so this is resistance to accept these changes. On one hand, the cortisol is up, you cannot really sleep well, and sleep is extremely important for weight management. And because of you are not sleeping, because of you are stressed, you are additionally trying to compensate by consumption of far more food than you would normally eat. So there is a number of factors coming into play, and you are not controlling them. You are not always aware of them. Because of this was just like, it was like that before, and I was fine. I was going to business dinner around 8. I was staying until business dinner until 11, and I was having food and wine, and I was fine. But now it is no longer the case.
So can you zoom in a bit more on alcohol? Because that's one thing I'm noticing, because I'm drinking much less, but also I feel like I process it much worse and I have a much worse hangover, even if I had like 2 beer, like really something that nothing, I'm not talking about the big night out. So how does processing alcohol come into play specifically on that and during those hormonal changes?
Um, in general, alcohol processed by woman's body is different than by men's body. Okay, alcoholism, which is dependency in woman, is far more pronounced, so to speak. It's a easier to develop and far more difficult to treat, specifically due to the level of estrogen that is in a body. So when it's dropping and when it's changing, metabolism, what is a word for processing, metabolism of alcohol is impaired. So women feel much more effect of on a second day, also on their sleep pattern, as well as an overall performance. And one thing I did not mention that is very associated is a memory issue. So like kind of you don't really always recall the situation or a certain words or a certain experience which happened just recently, not the ones that had been many years ago, but recently. So, and with alcohol consumption during this phase, it's actually getting worse. So when I was younger, I really did enjoy, especially living here in Europe, I really did enjoy a glass of wine. After a certain age, when it's actually I entered the second act, I completely quit alcohol and I don't miss it at all. And I function much better. I sleep much better, and I'm far more effective at my work as well as a personal life. So the message to women, please be mindful that your body unable to process and metabolize as good as it was in 30. So please be mindful in terms of how much and specifically what time. The closer to the end of the day, closer to the time when you're going to bed, the worse it will be. Your sleep will be impacted.
Oh, wow. And it all comes back to sleep. And I mean, so I also did take note what you said that, I mean, it's just all connected. We are connected body, right? But you know that actually even the weight issues are more related to stress and sleep. And I think that's something particularly for high performing career people, women, is something we might often neglect or think, we can just toughen it up or toughen it out. And I find that really important that, it's just impacting on so many levels, just really basic things like sleep and reducing stress. So maybe can you just say more about that, or also say maybe some initial simple ideas how to actually manage that better? I mean, already reducing alcohol is already one tip, or alcohol before bedtime.
The sleep is a highly important component of our overall well-being, and specifically during menopause, it's extra important for a number of reasons. So there is a cleaning of our body happening, and the people who are working in sleep space not really always able to explain all details. However, the sleep play incredibly role, specifically menopause, because of it's regulated your level of cortisol. Okay, so if you are stay awake, if you cannot fall asleep, or you woke up at 2 a.m. and cannot go back to sleep, for 2 or 3 hours, this is usually dysregulation of the cortisol level in your body. So the way how to handle this, obviously, as I mentioned, the increase of cortisol is happening with decrease of estrogen and progesterone. So obviously, one of the way to moderate this is using what is called hormone replacement therapy, which I not really like this word hormone replacement. I would say like maybe hormone therapy for a second way of life, because it's not really replacement per se. And this topic itself has been in debate for quite a long time, and unfortunately, not very well conducted study, which was in late 80 and until 2023 was given wrong message to women about hormone therapy in general. So now new data were released, and it's kind of more embracing use of hormonal therapy in this population. This is the one thing. And if you are still not really open to this option, there is obviously food. Try to avoid food before going to bed 3-4 hours. Food is not all things are equal. If you do consume food this late, try to avoid carbohydrates, sweetness, okay, including alcohol, okay. It has to be, if you really want to have glass of wine, have this glass of wine at 5 p.m. and 6 p.m., not at 8 or 9 p.m. Another things I found very helpful is actually physical exercise. And you don't have to be gym member. You do not have to go and to spend in sweat in a gym, for 3 hours. Just walking for a 20, 40 minutes if you have this opportunity, especially if you have an opportunity to walk in nature, not in a city, but in a park.
And about when to eat, I came across something really smart related to intermittent fasting, because I heard so much about that, but I'm not really, I love food, so I don't like the idea to not eat during the day. And then the tip I heard was, if you just basically don't eat dinner too late and don't eat breakfast too early, let's say you eat dinner at 7 and you eat breakfast at 7 the next morning, you fasted 12 hours. Because simply, even so, I mean, basically you fast through the sleep. And I thought it was a really clever way to, do a bit of it without starving during the day.
I totally agree with you. I love intermittent fasting. Okay, so and I was just like you on the same page. Like I love to eat. I really do enjoy food. It is something that I really do enjoy in this life. I would not want to starve, and I do not want to kind of have this level of restriction on my body. But I tried just for the sake of it. Like I've tried a number of diets. working on my weight management, so to speak, like for a good portion of my life. My weight fluctuated back and forth, depending on activities and depending on a stage. When I moved into what I call second act, I've noticed I really did not suffer. It was kind of like with any habit, it was probably 2, 3 days, somewhat unusual. So you're getting up in the morning and you're having coffee and something to eat, not because of you're hungry, you're just used to it. What we call you eat by finger, you eat by not by mouth. You are not hungry, you really don't want to. It's not like you really kind of just what is known in a industry like be aware of it, consciousness, a conscious approach. Are you really hungry? Do you really want to have this piece, or it's just because of habit? So once you kind of to be aware of it, and you started to track, like, no, I'm not hungry. I do not want to have a croissant or a yogurt or whatever you normally eat for a breakfast. I can postpone it for a later. And I just will have a coffee, or I will have a green tea, or whatever your favorite beverages in the morning. And then you maintain for a 2, 3, 4 hours. And I've noticed like around dish 2, I become hungry. I want to eat. And I eat well. I mean, like not an extra portion, but I eat well, when I feel like, yeah, I'm fine. And in the evening, I want to have some kind of like a snack. And it can be, I don't eat carbs, like normal, I don't like them, but it can be just, maybe like a berries and coffee, this kind of snack, maybe yogurt and coffee, maybe
You
apple.
drink coffee in the evening? Because that's
Yeah,
another thing I read about, that blocks your receptors
it
to
does.
know really when you're sleepy,
It does impact, but I think, like with everything, metabolism, what we call metabolized or a processing, each body is different. So in my particular case, I do drink coffee. I can drink if I have to stay awake. I can drink coffee at 10 p.m. and at 11 go into bed and I'm fine. Like it
So it
doesn't
gets
impact.
back to knowing yourself and listening to
It's a
your
no,
body.
it's a knowing yourself. It's a listen to your body, okay? But like I would not give recommendation to general populations that go and drink coffee at 6 p.m. and you will be fine with your sleep. I cannot say this, and I would not recommend.
Mm. So
But
let's get back to what you said about hormone replacement therapy, because not everybody is allowed to take it. Not everybody wants to take it, more from a philosophical bit. So for people that cannot or doesn't want to take it, there are many other ways to manage. And we talked about stress already a few times. And as listeners know, I'm a big fan of mindfulness, because I feel mindfulness practice can help with so many of this, already with stress reduction, but also with the mindfulness is not just sitting there and meditating, right? It's also all the principles that go with it. And the principles include things like radical acceptance. So just by accepting some things, we can reduce our stress. To give you a really concrete example, um, you know, I'm not sure where I'm in this whole perimenopause, menopause thing exactly, but I'm probably pretty much heady hitting like to the real menopause. And I do have heat waves. And when I wake up at night, I'm basically just telling myself, like when you're breastfeeding, you half asleep breastfeed and you go back to sleep. So I started telling my body, if that happens, if I wake up, you just open the blanket. And then when I'm cold again, you just sleep it. No need to wake me up. I really try to untraumatize it. It's not like, oh my God, I have a heat wave. Now I'm awake. Now I won't fall asleep. It's like, no, I just try to train my body to just take care of it without me really waking up. So what are the other, so first of all, how do you see mindfulness, and what are other tools people can use if they, for whatever reason, don't want to go to the hormone therapy?
okay. Thank you, Maggie. About mindfulness, I just recently, relatively recently, over the last several years, started to read and to educate myself, and I I learned one things which kind of stay with me from Buddhist monk who said you can get anything you want with meditation. And another portion of it, which was really, really helpful to me in the time specifically, which was less kind of pleasant when I was going through the rainy days. All our suffering are coming, as you noticed as well, as you mentioned, from resistance. So if we are integrating this resistance, if we are kind of moving from resistance and integrating this into our life, it's no longer become resistance, no longer become something that we have to attack or fight from. It's become kind of extension of us. You are integrating, you are accepting, and you are getting okay. And these methods can be applied to anything, like whether you are wanted to have some piece of food extra, maybe, or you are, as you described, like you are suffering because of night sweats, and you don't feel like you're highly comfortable, or like for some women who may not be able to tolerate stress level as it was, like they're getting irritable and they're getting less agreeable, so to speak. Okay, there is like a increasing, it's a statistical data, it's all over the world. Women are getting increasingly uncomfortable at work. Many of them are leaving work. Many of them are denied promotion because of they become different in a work environment. They become more outspoken and not always agreeable as they used to be. Okay. So, and I think when you are coming back to mindfulness, if you are looking at the situation and started from what is this that really is, this is really something that I have to resist? Is this something like, first of all, acknowledge, to be aware of it, and then gradually move yourself toward, incorporate, engage, embrace. And with that, I think many our suffering can become normalized, so to speak, not in a sense like it's not a trauma, it's just not perceived as a tremendous trauma. It's not perceived like something you have to resist and as something you have to fight against.
I also came across that in my Buddhist reading, and the way in the book they framed it was to say pain happens to all of us. So pain is unavoidable. Suffering can be avoided, because
Exactly.
suffering is basically what we make out of the pain. So we'll all have pain one way or another, whether physical or mental, at some point in our life. That's just part of life. But then what do we do with that pain makes the difference. And as much as we can accept it, that actually reduces the suffering.
Exactly. And the more acceptance is kind of going in proportion. The more you do accept, the less suffering it become, and then become nearly like not noticeable. Okay, as I described to you, my situation, my experience with intermittent fasting, in the beginning, it was highly uncomfortable. Like I used to have some yogurt or a croissant in the morning, and I have to kind of make some limitation, restriction to myself. And in the beginning, I was still longing for it. So I have to go through this process, through some exercise. Do I really need it? Do I really need this, a kick of my glucose in my body? Do I really, is there anything else I can do? Can I postpone for a little bit? Can I distract myself by something? Can I walk, go for a walk or to do some work to switch my attention, to switch my focus, and to switch my energy with that?
Hmm. So for our listeners, what I'm hearing is, so really the very first thing is it starts really with awareness, like listening more to your body, also maybe spotting the first symptoms, but then also quite quickly to come in acceptance, because and also I'm jumping so to acceptance, and because that will also help then with the stress reduction, with the better sleep, so you get like in a positive cycle rather than a vicious cycle. But maybe also to normalize one more thing, what I understood from my reading, but you're the expert, it's also not everybody goes through the same heaviness of menopause, right? So what I read is that about 30%, but feel free to correct me, of women have it quite light. It's something is changing, but it's not really horrible. And then 30% have like maybe heavier symptoms, but it's still not really like life restraining. And then there's a certain percentage where it's really painful, you know, where really the changes are so big that probably that's the audience that would really want to get as much help as possible. So do you have roughly the statistics, how's that distributed, or is that actually wrong data I'm quoting?
And again, frankly speaking, I cannot recall right now specific numbers, but I would assume that what you quoted was quite close to what we would normally, what we may expect in a general population, so to speak, in general population, and it goes for absolutely nearly many conditions. Okay, for many conditions, things we have to keep in mind. It's menopause is usually at this stage of life, women have other what's called chronic diseases. Okay, there are many of them may have cancers, and many of them have dealt with infertility. Many of them might have a cardiovascular problem or a different issues. So depending on what is underlying, what called underlying conditions with your body, obviously it will be amplified with the menopause. So obviously, in those subset of in those group of people, in those subset of population, as we say, so we will see different level of symptoms and different clinical pictures, different presentation of the symptoms compared to someone who may not have those problems. Like I would consider myself, for example, being in a light category. Like I did not suffer, with an exception of weight gain and hair changes. I would not say that I suffered tremendously mood swings or some cardiovascular sweatings and etc. The only things to me, it was biggest challenge was my weight management. I gained weight in the beginning because of I was not, as I mentioned, I simply did not want to accept. But once I accepted the changes, I become friend to myself. I,
Yeah,
I
and you
started.
adapted,
I
right? So
adopted, I started to notice my pattern, what I do eat, when and how. I remove completely alcohol from my diet and started to track, and things become quite okay, if I would not say like very good.
that's
So
great. So before we move to the quick fire burst question, for listeners now that might be thinking like, oh my God, I haven't thought of it now. And now I see suddenly this potentially really painful thing coming my way. What are a few, because I've seen some really great LinkedIn posts you also did with some like around different dimensions, things people can do. Good. I mean, we touched on many already, on sleep, on nutrition, on maybe things for your brain. So is there anything we haven't touched on yet, or maybe a few things for people to get started with so they don't feel like completely overwhelmed and scared now because they might not have had thought about it yet?
I think we touch on everything, and out of everything what we spoke, I do believe the major factor is actually your own view toward these changes. I think this is actually change everything. And I can speak it from my own experience because of, as I mentioned, I was resistant in the beginning, then I started to accept, and it's actually more to the point when I celebrate the good things that happen. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm saying, genuinely, the good things are happening with in this stage of life. You become more true to yourself. You are no longer wanted to pretend. You are accepting yourself, and you understand, certain elements more clearly than before. You become more clear, less vague, less pretentious, and quite possible for many of us it can happen in 20s. Okay, but I think, and I see this in literature, and I see this when I'm talking to my friends who are in the same kind of age category, it's increasingly pronouncedly happening within these changes when you become more yourself. And with that, you have all of a sudden, you feel certain level of powers that it was not available to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with that, I think it's actually leading, and it's energy that you felt like you're losing because of you are no longer like 30. You cannot stay all night and I don't know in some party. You cannot run, or when you are with kids, with family. this energy is kind of redirected. It's become more focused. You kind of realizing more clearly what do you really want, what you can. It's become available with this clarity overall that I found very powerful, specifically in this second stage of life.
I love that. And we might have discussed that in our previous discussions. There's a really good book written by a guy who called Anis Adat, and it's called Soaring in Midlife. And that's what got me on this whole midlife opportunity focus, because he also touches on a few of the changes, the mental, the physical ones, but also the life setting ones, like kids maybe are moving out, there's many changes. And he also really reframes it as this is the whole second half of your life opening up now that you can be more true to yourself. So this is actually a really exciting opportunity, and we just have to grab it.
Exactly. I totally agree. Yes, I remember you mentioned about, and there is quite a few lately become available, more and more books in this space. It was not so prevalent, let's say, even 15 years ago. At least I haven't seen. And at the time when I was practicing medicine, which was like more than 20 years ago, so it was not prevalent at all. Menopause was nearly something to be shameful. And now it's a change, and this perception it changes, and you feel this on a daily basis, the way how people speak, and the way how women speak, the way how men speaking about it. It was not before, and I think with that we have kind of uh, entire movement of of people, of women, of men that would unavoidable lead to profound and positive overall outcomes and changes for all of us.
So this is really an amazing mission you're on. So you should really bring that to as many people as possible. So with that, unless there's anything else you feel burning to share, but you get a moment to make a closing remark at the end, I would love to move to the quick fire burst questions. Are you ready to go?
Okay.
So you know the drill. I'll be shooting 7 questions at you, and I challenge you to answer with one word or like one idea, because it's really hard to answer in one word.
Okay.
Are you good to go?
Sure, go ahead.
Let's go. So one belief you had to drop to live your way.
Obedience.
Yeah, nice. A place that cracked something open in you.
Well, surprisingly, Zurich.
Ah, okay. The hard thing is you always want to go deeper when the answers come, but let's keep going. One thing you had to unlearn.
Oh, smallness. And this is what I was actually elaborating when I was saying about second act. When you really realize you become true to yourself, and you realize your own kind of power, you really no longer wanted to settle and to take less space, less voice, less vision. You really feel comfortable with what you are, pretty much in any room.
That's beautiful. And it goes nicely with letting go of obedience. And that so fits the whole mindful rebellion idea and challenging the script. So, that really fits nicely to this message that I'm also trying to bring out there. So, what is your non-negotiable right now?
Independence, sovereignty. I really love freedom in any way, in form and shape.
That so resonates as well. I can totally sign up to that. What is the boldest risk that you took and that paid off?
Well, this multiple times that I tried to reinvent myself, start all over again. When I felt like I fell or even not fail, I start all over again. And this is applicable, I think we mentioned before, like for multiple changes in my career, multiple changes in location. Originally from Ukraine, I lived for a long time in the United States and then came to Switzerland. And I worked as a physician, and I worked for industry. and I work also for government agency in states and etc. So this kind of reinvention, and I also had my own company. So this courage to start all over, driven by curiosity. Do you think I can make it? So if I will try.
That's amazing. And that's also because that's, it's so scary to
It
reinvent.
is. It
And so
is.
it's good to hear that that's actually the risk you took that paid off. So for listeners, listen to that. It is scary for all of us to do that. But when you did it, and when you did it often enough, I think this it becomes less scary because you've done it before and you've seen, what happened or what didn't happen.
Well, it was a combination of my own experience, the family I grew up, as well as a book I read, and one of them was kind of really stay with me for a long time. The 5 regrets that people have. And one of them is not to be themselves, not to do, not to try. People do not regret what they did, usually don't. I mean, with an exception of small population who usually kind of incarcerated. Okay, so usually people do not regret what they did, but people usually, and many do regret what they didn't. And I've heard this from my family, from my mom, from my dad, from others. Had I known I would start it, I should have been a little bit more courageful, and I blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I felt like I would rather try, I would rather take a risk and maybe fail versus to be in my early 70 or early 80 as my parents right now and thinking I should have done differently.
And I think, first of all, thanks for sharing that because I feel like I need to hear that these days too, because, I put myself on this whole mindful rebellion, coaching, portfolio, career exploration. And there are days when I have my imposter syndrome popping up and my little devil saying like, what are you doing? And then it exactly when I tell myself what you just told us, it's always better to try to give it a shot and to stick to it and just see where it takes you, but to really keep the courage.
Yeah, courage and curiosity, Maggie. I found like those two are kind of goes hand by hand, and to have them in any career. And I'm not inviting you, stop and drop your career. I'm not inviting making changes on like every day. People can be happy on one track or one path for quite a long time, but still people not happy when they're doing all things all the same way for a number of years. This is exactly where people kind of losing energy, when people kind of become bored and boring. This is where life energy is going away. And this is what I do invite you. You do not have to jump all over the world as I did. You do not have to change your career 4 times as I did. Okay, you do not have to make a major transformation, but you still have to have a courage to try new things a little bit. It may be just, like a new way to your work. It may be just like a new way to dress, a new style hair, whatever, something that has not been within your typical realm of action or view.
And I mean, we're completely getting off script the one word answers, but this is so deep. So you said you don't want to be bored and boring. And I looked a lot into burnout, and I'm more and more looking into bore out. And I know it's not a real medical term, but I noticed that often it comes also together. But often we're not only stressed, but also we're just really bored of doing the same old administrative stuff, and it takes a while to realize that because sometimes it's disguised in other things. And when you realize, actually, I'm just really bored, that's really the moment when you need something different and you need to inject something new.
Well, Maggie, you touch on very important things. I think we can create a new podcast. Sorry, just about burnout, because I'm also have been there more than once in different stages and a different kind of to different scale. I experienced, and outcome was also quite different. But And because of that, and also because of that, I've gone through a number of literature from psychology, philosophy, things that are in history, and the recent one, and one that goes back to Greek's philosopher. And one thing I've noticed, which kind of seemingly going throughout all those hundreds of years and across all professions or all activities, we are getting bored when we are disconnected with ourselves. When I was asked to do that, I do not want to do, which is foreign to me. It's a foreign to me. I don't like it. And I'm doing this to please, or I'm doing this because I have to be paid. I have to be kind of obedient. And this is a part of every single job that I know on the earth, and it has been the case. The difference is the proportion. If it is a 20%, you can handle. Okay, like for example, I'm awful with a different, administrative work, filing, organizing documents, and etc. I would rather to pay someone or to delegate if I have a company. So if you are asking me to do so, I can do it for a I don't like it, but I will do it for a little while. But if it will be my job, I will be burned out. It's disconnect. It's completely not me.
We should have a second podcast on that, or you need to send me those books because yes, we are definitely onto something, and I find this is really deep. But let's keep wrapping up because we're almost running out of time. So I have two more quick fire burst questions for you, and then I'll pass the word to you. So if there's one word for your leadership or your life in this chapter, what is it?
Wow. In this stage of life, let's be specific. In this stage of life, it's a kindness. It's a kindness, and I'm not mean to be softness, and I'm not mean to be nicest. Are two different things, okay? It's a ability to understand another position and to lead with a care. Care for another position for yourself. Not to be nice, not to pretend, but fully be responsible, recognizing the position of people that you are attached to. And it's
Beautiful.
energy. It's your energy shared with others.
Yeah, kindness. I like that. So, what is the ripple you hope your story creates?
I would call this permission, for lack of better word, but maybe I have to look for a search for a better term. Permission to give a woman, to remind them they're beautiful in this stage of life. They're even more beautiful on many levels that they were not available before. Yes, body is changing. Yes, there are some changes on the skin and the hair and etc. And it's not deniable. But there is an internal beauty which is expressed in a different way of looking into things, into reaching out to people, into embracing people, into helping others, as well as lead others, depending on your own ability and predisposition in life. So I wish, I want, even with our small podcast, it would kind of given some signal of permission. You can be as you are, you beautiful as you are, you very wise in this stage of life. So embrace and enjoy.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that's a relief that ripples out. And again, same for men. They might have the same but different concerns to say, like, I'm not this or that. But I think all of us can become more beautiful in the inside in the second chapter.
Absolutely, absolutely, Maggie. It's absolutely applicable to men. I'm just not a andrologist. I'm gynecologist, so I was kind of focusing on a woman's space. It's not to ignore the male 50% of population. Okay, just I wanted to kind of to
Speak
direct
to the
where
women.
to my
No
expertise.
offense,
Yes, no offense,
no
no
offense taken. I'll
discrimination.
just keep them
No, no,
looping them
no,
back
no.
in.
Exactly. Yes, but changes are unavoidable. It's common. Okay, so it's common. It is, and it will be. This is the only thing which is a permanent are changes. Okay, the way how we are accepting them, the way how we're embracing them, the way how we are actually navigating a new chapter of our life. This is what makes different. And I inviting to be open to this, to recognize the changes are common, and find a way to embrace, not to resist, and not to fight.
Wow, that's
Enriching
wonderful.
yourself and others around yourself.
That's a wonderful closing. So, well, thanks so much for all your wisdom you shared, for playing along with the quickfire burst. So, is there anything else you'd like to share, or where people can find you? Should they follow you on LinkedIn? Like anything you'd like to share with listeners as we wrap up?
Yes, thank you, Maggie. Yes, as I mentioned, I authored the blog, which is on a Substack. It's called Longevity for Her. It's basically, again, because of my expertise, I'm predominantly writing for women and about women, but not only. Like lately, over the last 6 months, it was in general expression of kind of my understanding of philosophical changes of human life, how we are evolving as a humans. There is a lot of publications about spirituality, about philosophy. So I'm kind of enjoying to be on this cross between physical body, spiritual life, as well as a philosophy, going back to Greek philosopher and finishing by our contemporary workers. And so thoughtful.
So start with the Substack, and if you send me the link, I'll drop it into the show notes so people can follow you.
I will. Thank you very much.
So with that, thank you so much. This was amazing. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll be in touch. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
That's it for today. If this stirred something in you, don't just sit on it. Do something, anything, today, right now. Take one small intentional step toward more freedom, flow, and fun. And see where the ride takes you. If this hit home, follow the show, share it with a friend, or leave a review. That's how we ripple this energy further. Want to go deeper? Head over to mindset/mastery.ch for coaching, tools, and next steps. Until next time, trust your gut, stay curious, and keep playing it by your rules. Bye for now.